Good morning, everybody. I'm Attorney Shaidi Guzman. I am your lecturer for Criminal Law Book 1. Our topic for today is the second paragraph of Article 4 of the Revised Penal Code. This actually pertains to impossible crimes. Okay, for the last video, we have already discussed the first paragraph of Article 4, which pertains to aberratio ictus, error in persona, and praeter intentionem. Okay, so yun yung first paragraph ng Article 4. Now, we are going to discuss the second paragraph, which pertains to an impossible crime. Under Article 4, Paragraph 2 of the Revised Penal Code, an impossible crime is defined as an act which should be an offense against persons or property, were it not for the inherent impossibility of its accomplishment, on account of the employment of inadequate or ineffectual means. Okay, that is the definition of an impossible crime. Based on this definition, we now have the four requisites of an impossible crime. The first one is that it is an act performed against persons or property. It is an act performed against persons or property. Number 2, the act performed must be done with an evil intent. Number 3, the accomplishment is inherently impossible on account of inadequate or ineffectual means. And number 4, the act performed should not constitute another offense or felony defined under the Revised Penal Code or in any other special penal laws. Okay. Yang mga requisites na yan, iisa-isahin natin yan, okay, na i-discuss. First element, the act performed must be an offense against persons or property. Meaning, you cannot commit an impossible crime if the act performed constitutes a crime against chastity. So you have to make yourself familiar with the felonies against persons and property. Anong example ng mga felonies against persons? Nandyan ang homicide, parricide, infanticide, abortion, murder, physical injuries. Those are the felonies against persons. Ano naman ang felonies against property? We have robbery, theft, arson. Okay? Those are the crimes against property. So, if the act performed constitutes a crime against persons and property, the first element of an impossible crime is present. What are the crimes naman na hindi pwedeng pasok sa impossible crime? Nandiyan yung crimes against chastity. Ano yung mga crimes against chastity? Acts of lasciviousness, abduction, seduction. Okay? Rape used to be a crime against chastity. However, there is already an amendatory law which declassified rape from being a crime against chastity into a crime against persons. So, sa ngayon, dahil meron na pong amendment, yung rape po ay nasa Article 266-A na, kasunod ng homicide, if I'm not mistaken. Article 266-A is already rape. So, rape is already a crime against persons. Tama? So, okay na tayo dyan. That is the first element of an impossible crime. So, we give a scenario. Ito naman yung mga paborito natin eh. Scenario. For example, si Paolo, isa siyang Grab driver. Nag-grab siya. One night, he was able to pick up Kate. Kate was beautifully dressed. Ganda-ganda ni Kate. Makinis, maganda, maputi. So, sumakay si Kate sa sasakyan, sa car ni Paolo as a Grab driver. Dahil nahumaling si Paolo kay Kate, after few minutes of driving, Paolo then started to kiss and touch Kate. While Paolo was kissing Kate, okay, so nagkakainitan na, and then after some time, Paolo started to touch Kate. And then he discovered that Kate is not actually a woman, but a man. Lalaki pala si Kate. Yun pala ang tinatago niyang sekreto. Question. It's an impossible crime committed. If we're going to base the answer on the first requisite, the answer would be a no. Why? Because the act performed would have been a crime against chastity, which is actually acts of lasciviousness. Okay, so hindi na siya pasok agad sa element number 1. Okay, now, let's make another example. Okay. Si Paolo naman ngayon, gawin na, hindi na siya grab driver. Gawin na lang natin siyang boy. Okay, houseboy. Yaya. Yayo. Okay. Si Kate naman ang kanyang boss. So, Paolo was a houseboy. Kate was the boss. Kate was still pretty, makinis, maganda, etc. Paolo has a crush on Kate. Okay. So, every day, pinagnanasahan niya si Kate. One night, hindi na niya kayang pigilan ang kanyang pagnanasa kay Kate. So, he entered the room of Kate, and there, he abused her. He committed sexual acts while Kate was sleeping. Okay. Not knowing that 5 minutes before he entered and started doing those acts against Kate, Kate was already dead. Okay. By bangungot, patay na si Kate. Question. Is an impossible crime committed? Element number 1. In that case, the answer would be different. It would be a yes. Because the act performed constitutes the crime of rape. And rape is already a crime against persons and not already a crime against chastity. Okay. And because it is legally impossible to rape a dead woman, then the impossible crime is committed. That is the first requisite of an impossible crime. Naintindihan ba natin? The act performed must be a crime against persons or property. Okay. Now, we go to the second element, which is the act done must be performed with an evil intent. This is self-explanatory. Ang ibig sabihin, may intention siyang gumawa ng mali. There is bad faith and there is malice in the performance of those acts. The third element, ito medyo mahirapan tayo dito. The third element actually pertains to the fact that the accomplishment of the crime is inherently impossible. Okay, due to the employment of inadequate or ineffectual means. Discuss natin to. There are actually two types of, or two nature of impossibility. The first one is the legal impossibility. The second is the physical impossibility. Pag sinabi nating legal impossibility, intended acts, even if accomplished, would not amount to a crime. Example ng legal impossibility. May nakita akong magandang wallet. Ay, hindi ako magnanakaw eh. Si Paolo, may nakita siyang branded na Louis Vuitton na bag. Tapos, nagandahan siya. Kasi limited edition yon. Tapos, ninakaw niya sa bag ni Ronald. Okay. Ay, sa bahay ni Ronald. Okay. Not knowing that the Louis Vuitton bag was actually his. Sa kanya pala yung Louis Vuitton na bag. Yun pala yung nawawala niya 2 years ago. In that case, there is legal impossibility. Because you cannot actually steal a property which you own. Sa kanya yun eh. So, there's no theft. Okay. Yun ang example ng legal impossibility. We go now to the second nature of impossibility, which is physical impossibility. Ito naman yung extraneous circumstances unknown to the actor or beyond his control, which prevent the consummation of the intended crime. Example nito yung parang kanina. Okay. You rape, okay, a corpse. Okay, this is physically impossible. What else? You murder a corpse. Okay. Paano mo mapapatay yung patay na? Okay, yan yung physical impossibility. Let's make an example of this third element. Let's give a scenario. Ronald and Paulo are enemies. One time, nagkasalubong sila sa isang gasoline station. Dahil nagkatinginan sila, nagkatitigan sila ng masama, Ronald decided to take the matter into his own hands and got his revolver and shot at Paulo. However, because the bullets were already old, luma na yung bala, the bullets did not discharge. Question: is an impossible crime committed? Meron bang impossible crime doon? Go back to the third element. The accomplishment is inherently impossible, or the means employed are inadequate or ineffectual. Para malaman mo kung ma-impossible crime, ang pwede mong itanong doon ay, pwede bang mangyari yung krimen o hindi? O imposibleng mangyari yung krimen? In the scenario given, if the bullets were new, they would have fired towards or against Paulo. Tama? Meaning, hindi yun imposibleng mangyari. Therefore, there is no impossible crime. What happened is actually, or could be, in the nature of an attempted homicide. Because the fact that the bullets were not discharged would fall under the category, yung phrase, na act other than the accused spontaneous desistance. I-discuss ko yan later on, yung spontaneous desistance, yung attempted stage, later, I think it's Article 6 of the Revised Penal Code. But anyway, for purposes of Article 4, impossible crime, there's no impossible crime. Kasi pwedeng mangyari yung pagpatay kung pumutok lang yung barel. Okay. The answer would have been different if the scenario is like this. Si Ronald, kinuha niya yung revolver niya, tapos pagputok niya, hindi pumutok kasi wala palang bala. Okay? The revolver was actually empty. In that case, imposible naman talagang pumutok ang isang barel or revolver na walang bala. Therefore, an impossible crime is actually committed. Okay, gets natin yan, yung pinagkaiba. Okay, don't confuse an impossible crime from an attempted or frustrated stage of a crime. Ang lagi nyo lang titignan ay kapag yung facts ba, ganito ba ang facts? Okay, pwede bang mangyari yung krimen o hindi? Kapag pwedeng mangyari, ang ibig sabihin, hindi imposible. Ang ibig sabihin, hindi siya impossible crime. Okay. Ang ibig sabihin, pwede siyang attempted stage, kapag rather than one, or than the accused spontaneous desistance, or pwede siyang frustrated stage. Okay, independent from the will of the perpetrator. I-discuss natin yung attempted at frustrated later on sa next na video. Anyway, yun lang yung magiging gauge ninyo. So that is the third requisite of an impossible crime. Dapat, it is inherently impossible to commit the act, okay, or the crime. And number 4, the last element is the act performed should not constitute a violation of another provision of the Revised Penal Code or a special penal law. Let's make a scenario in order to explain itong fourth requisite. that the act performed should not constitute another violation of the revised penal code or any other special law. Okay. Ronald and Paulo are enemies and they are neighbors. Pinag-aawain nila yung right of way. Okay. One time, si Paulo sobrang nainis na siya kay Ronald. Okay. So, anong ginawa ni Paulo? In the middle of the night, Paulo broke into the house of Ronald. Sinira niya yung lock ng bahay sa back gate. Tapos, back door. Sinira niya yung lock ng back door. Tapos, umakyat siya sa kwarto ni Ronald. And then, when he arrived at the room of Ronald, he stabbed Ronald several times on the chest, on the heart. Okay. Not knowing that Ronald has already been dead via bangungot. Okay, nabangungot na pala si Ronald. Okay. Question. Is an impossible crime committed? Okay, or palitan natin yung question. Is Paulo liable for an impossible crime? Mas pahirapin pa natin ng konti. Are your answers on those two questions the same? Okay. Now, under the first question, the answer should be yes. Okay. An impossible crime is actually committed because it is impossible to murder a corpse. Physical impossibility. Ronald has already been dead when Paulo stabbed him. Okay. But as to the second question, is Paulo liable for an impossible crime? The answer would be no. Why? Because of the fourth requisite, which is the act performed should not constitute any other violation of the revised penal code or any other special penal laws. In this case, Paulo is liable for trespass to dwelling because he entered the house and broke into the house of Ronald. Okay, so you have to be very careful in answering questions. If the question is there an impossible crime committed? Yes, because there is physical impossibility to perform the act. However, he would not be liable for an impossible crime because another crime is committed. Take note that what is being punished in an impossible crime is not actually the act itself. Okay, because legally, there's no crime committed, or physically, there's no crime committed. So you cannot punish the act. What is being punished is the propensity of committing the crimes. Okay. So, if the actor actually performed a crime, the actor should be punished for the crime actually committed and not for the impossible crime. Okay? Mapapunish ka doon sa kung ano yung totoong ginawa mo. Okay, na krimen. We have the case of Intod versus Court of Appeals. 215 SCRA 52. So, what happened on the case? Ano bang nangyari dito? Okay. 4 armed malefactors with intent to kill went to the house of the victim. When they reached the house of the victim, it was a bahay kubo, shanty, tagpi-tagpi lang. And when they learned that the victim's bedroom is located, sabi natin, on the left side, they started firing their guns on the left side of the house. So, pinaulan na nila ng bala. Nasira yung bahay kasi shanty lang. Okay. Not knowing that the victim was not actually home. Wala pala sa bahay yung gusto nilang patayin. So, kahit na pinaulan na nila ng bala, walang nangyari. The question that was raised before the courts, the Supreme Court, is for which crimes are the four armed men liable? And the court decided to the effect that they are liable for an impossible crime. Okay. Tatandaan nyo to in Todd versus Court of Appeals. This decision of the court has strong oppositions coming from legal luminaries and legal experts. Why? Okay. Remember the fourth requisites that we have discussed a while ago. The acts should not constitute another violation of any provision of the Revised Penal Code or any other special penal laws. In this case, some of our legal experts are saying that another crime was actually committed, which is destruction of property. Therefore, they should be liable. They should be made liable for the crime actually committed and not for the impossible crime, based on Article 4, Paragraph 2, Impossible Crime of the Revised Penal Code. Anyway, those are just the opinions of our legal experts. But if you have to have a legal basis, if the same facts would be presented to you, then you can cite the case of Todd versus Court of Appeals. If you're going to ask me, parang ano naman, legal expert. Anyway, if you're going to ask me, okay, if a question is presented in this manner, you can answer it citing the case of Todd versus Court of Appeals. But the more prudent thing is to go back to Article 4, Paragraph 2 and apply all the requisites. In which case, they should be made liable for the crime actually committed. Okay, yun lang ang opinion natin, mga ano. Anyway, so I think that wraps up Article 4 of the Revised Penal Code. Next video, we will be having Article 5, 6, and 7. Okay, this will all be included in your recitations. So please study. Okay, so if you have any questions, just message on our group chat again. And please be online if ever for our oral recitations. Okay, thank you everybody. Bye-bye.